Welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host. Today I have a special guest with me, and this is, a special program. Viewers that you cannot wink or take a time out for a minute to go to the refrigerator because you will miss too much. I want to welcome my guest here, Alvin Corneal. Alvin, welcome to the set.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you again.
You too. The reason I wanted to bring you here, Alvin, is your story is so big, and we cannot afford to not let our young generation hear your story. And I want to start from childhood and take it all through to present day. I know you were born in Trinidad, but what part of Trinidad were you from?
I was born in Port of Spain.
Port of Spain?
Yeah, just off Piccadilly Street at the back, one of the small streets there. I was born there, and I grew up in San Juan. My mom became ill when I was young, and she was hospitalized for a few years. And my father's uncle took care of me from the time I was like a year and a half, and I grew up in San Juan.
Well, I lost my bet because we were trying to adopt you in the South. We thought you were from Palo Seco.
Actually, you would have been partly right. My mother is Venezuelan.
Okay.
She came through in the way that most people come through illegally. In those days, it wasn't even called that. And Rancho Quemado, I have a lot of relatives down there through my mother, right? And some of them I hadn't met until I went to work on a scholarship in Palo Seco when I was about 16, 17 years old. But yes, so you were partly right.
Well, I hope you were, because we were saying all the greats, which you are, that came to this country football came somewhere through the oil belt. So you played down there for a little while, right?
I played for TPD in 1957, 58, 59. And then I was asked to come back into Port of Spain because I was getting a job, but at the same time, Maple wanted me back into Port of Spain because I was sort of a youth with Maple. And that's how I went back into town.
Okay, well, you're a tongue boy. So you're a tongue boy. And that's how we call you guys from the South. You're a tongue boy. So now you're a tongue boy. Let me take you to your childhood. When did this dream start for you? When did you realize, I've got something special?
You know, I grew up in an environment where there was a stroller sports club. And my uncle was the president of that club. And so I lived and grew in the environment of this club. These guys were fanatical about cricket and football and everything else. Their club was really fairly big and very reputable. We used to go to Tisha in Tisha Village every year for one. Tisha used to come down to San Juan to sort of, and a lot of the players, Colts and Malvern, used to come into Arangua, Savannah to play against Rollers. I grew up in that environment. And my adopted father, as you'd want to call it, because when my mom died, my father, he was a musician, and he was on the American base, and they offered him a job to go to Bonnier, and he went to Venezuela, and he never came back for 35 years. However, they were fanatical. So I was in the middle of it. There was a little space around the back of our house with some grapefruit trees, a lot of which I liked. But under it was a sort of area where you can play a 2v2 or play a little bit of cricket with the coconut bat and the hard tambourine balls. And I learned to play as much as I could there.
Right.
We were at a corner outside, and there was only one traffic light. So in the evening, and we played there. And there were some good players who grew out of this. Now, this came on me naturally because everybody was interested. I was probably a few years less than the elder ones. But I continued to play and play and play. And I had the most interesting stepmother and stepfather, simply because of the fact that if I went out there to play, the match cannot start without I'm batting first.
Right.
That's my mom. If you want to play in this yard, he's got to bat first.
Right.
Right? And those were the little rules that sort of took me into it. The question you ask is a difficult one. How did I understand or know that this would have happened? I never did. Up to today, I look at it as just a part of my life, simply because of the fact that I happen to have met a lot of great people when I was 8, 9. I met the great Sir Frank Worrell and Everton Weeks. They came with the Barbados team and they were invited to one of the homes. And I was a little kid, like 8 or 9 years old. And Neville Almondo's, who's Gary Almondo's dad, he died now. He said, look, you want to come and shake these people's hand? I was ashamed, Steve, because I had on one of these little khaki pants where, you know, they take the big safety pins and they pin the pants onto the shirt so that it will stay. No belt in this business. But I met with these guys.
Right.
When I was about 10 years old, Strollers played in the Northern League. I was pretty big. I had reasonable size. And I used to go down there with my uncle, my uncle, and he played with Strollers. And I was watching with them. But those guys worked. So sometimes they would get there late. And one bright suggestion came up one day, why don't you let Alvin play? I'm 10 and a half years old and I'm playing with these big guys. You know, okay, I don't think it was very impressive. I can't even remember. But what I do know is that I started then. And then they sort of brought me in gradually into the life that I was beginning to say, hey, this is something really nice. What really got to me was when I was leaving primary school to go to a college. And I sat the exam like everybody else, but I'm not in the first 100 people in Trinidad, so they got their choices.
Right.
But Fatima and St. Mary's, because I'm Roman Catholic, had their exams. I did both exams, hoping that I'd get into one. It so happened that I got into both. The decision now, because I might tell you, I was from a very poor family, and they had to look at every dollar. And when we got to this predicament, Dad says, you know, we can't send you to, I said I wanted to go to St. Mary's. He said, yeah, that's good because that's less. The railway station was there. You can walk up from the railway station. And Fatima is out because it's way down in Mokrapa. You have to take a trolley bus. We can't afford that every day. Or the whole Trelawney was going on. And somebody told the priest at Fatima, Father Ivan Fitzwilliam, who was a national soccer player, said, they've got a little kid here. He's about to go to St. Mary's. Why don't you all try to get him? How they found my parents, I don't remember. But all of a sudden, Dad says, you're going to Fatima. I said, how you arrive at that? He says, well, they offered to give you a bicycle, and they offered to give you uniforms to come to school with. And those are things that we had to buy.
Right.
So therefore, we're going to send you to Fatima. That's how I went to Fatima College.
So you was never involved in elementary school football?
No, no. I was involved with Strollers.
Yeah, but
no, I never played with every time I played with kids, they were older than I was.
You know what's funny, though? It seems to me, every time I talk to people from the North, because I talk to a lot of people about this, and elementary school football was not like a big deal, but in Deep South, we went through the elementary school. We competed against each other until we went on.
Well, you know what? The elementary school in Samoa was right near the Catholic Church. And there was a savannah that adjoined the Catholic Church and the police station right across the road.
Right.
But that was a savannah for the Strollers. When they didn't go to Aranguez, they would go there. That's where I used to play with them.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm behind the goal just getting the ball out of the road because there was no fence around. And that's where I started to develop. But I have never been at the primary school level playing football, no.
So at what age or at what stage you says, maybe I got something, because for me, it was a teacher who said, this kid looks like he can play. And that kind of clicked my switch.
Yeah.
Maybe I can play.
Well,
how did that happen for you?
Colts was one of the most popular teams in San Juan. Why, I don't know. But my uncle, everybody liked Colts. If you go to watch Colts Maple, you're looking at Colts. Everybody's with Colts. So they invited Colts up on the Sun. On every year they invited, and I was then 12, going on 13, and I played against Colts, and I realized I was not out of depth. You know, I may not have been a star, but I was not for 12-year-old.
You're comfortable.
And a guy comes up to me and he said, son, one of these days, you will wear my shirt in the national team. The first thing is, I didn't know who the guy was.
Right.
So I said, you know, okay, thank you, sir. And Henry Cyrus, a guy who was from Trollers, he was a real Colts fanatic. He said, you know who you just spoke to? I said, no. He said, Shea Seymour. I said, who's he? Because I didn't know him.
Yeah, right.
He said, did you hear what he just told you? I said, yeah, I heard. That was the first time. I think that triggered me off, because he had scored some beautiful goals that same afternoon. And I was on the field, so I recognized his worth. And when he told me this, man, I was as happy as they come going home. And, you know, I told it to my family. I said, this gentleman said I'll wear his national shirt.
Right.
That was where I think it started.
And Shea's like the first, he was the first professional that we had in England?
Himself and Matthew Nunes.
Right.
They played there together. Funny enough, there's an extended story to this, because 7 years afterwards, the West Indies, Trinidad and Tobago went to England first in 1954. That's when Shea and Matthew and Alan Joseph and these guys went. And in 1959, the first ever West Indies team went to England.
That's football team?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to be in that team. So we went out there for 6 months, and we went out to play a team called Weymouth. And we driving. It was only in the buses those days, and they didn't have too many highways, so we were just going through different villages and so on. And we got down there and watched this crowd, and you know, I said, hey, you know, they said that this was a 3rd division team, so I said, okay, fine, but they had about 5,000 people there. Well, England's got a lot of people. And at the end of the game, this guy came up and he put his hand on my shoulder, and I'm looking at him and say, well, who is he? You know, because there are a lot of Trinis over there.
Right.
He said, do you remember me? I looked at him and I said, I remember your face. He says, I'm the person who told you that one day. I said, oh my gosh, yes, I remember only too well. Right. And he started telling them about this little incident. And, you know, it sort of elated me. It might have been even a mild form of being egotistic, but at the same time, I was enjoying it. I didn't look at it from the point that one of these days I'll be doing this. Right. It was never on the cards. It was just that type of thing.
But so you came onto the national team at a very young age.
Yeah. I was 16 years and 280 odd days.
Wow.
And funnily enough, when I came on, I was on the substitute bench. It was in 1954, when the England all-amateur team with Bedford Jezzard and all these guys came here, Jimmy Hill, and they came here together. I was a reserve in the North team. North played, and the guys beat them 1-0, and then they didn't pick me to go on the field. I was in the subs, and then I went down to South in the Trinidad team at Skinner Park. And I was there on the bench and everything else, and I got 15 minutes of the game. Delbert Charlo, whom you probably know, turned out to be a real, Delbert and Doyle turned out to be real close friends of mine. Said, give this kid a chance. And I got a chance to play. They got 4-0, and North lost 1-0 in the North. Whatever happened there. However, they played 3 games, they won all 3. And that was where I started. And from then onward, it was like getting into the North teams, the Bowman Cup, the Red Cross, the Dambolin Cup, and then Maple, I joined, and then I got into the winning the Good and Chisholm. You know, you guys couldn't beat us. We used to just whack you all for a few years. And that's how it went.
So your first team was Colts, really?
And it was, I didn't know Colts. My first team was Strollers.
Strollers.
Wherever they went, I went.
Okay, I mean in the Portsmouth Football League.
No, my Maple, I've
Maple? Always a Maple?
Well, until I worked for Palaseco, but it was always Maple. From the time, when I left Fatima, and during the time I was waiting to go on scholarship to TPD, I played for Maple with Edgar Vidal was in that team as well. Alvin Holder. Alvin was at Fatima with me. We went to Tranquility together. You know, so all of these movements were sort of gradual, but well endorsed, as you can see, with talent, because Edgar was a wonderful player as well.
Exactly.
And when I went to Palaseco, Edgar was my good friend, and he played for a different club because he lived in Bartaria.
Right.
But it was between both of us. They were cross-talking as to who's better, and I said, Edgar, come. And I tried to get him down there, and I did. Right. He played for Palaseco too. He still lives down there, as a matter of fact. And he got married to my sister, and you know, they had a family down there. So it was sort of, you know, you were partly right. I had family down there.
Yeah, because there's a lot of arguments always with the guys that having a drink and they talk about, well, Alvin is from Palaseco, and saying Alvin is from Port Spain, and you know, I didn't know.
Yeah, the thing about it is that one guy in Belmont once, he came to me in the Savannah. He says, Alvin, you were born in Belmont. I said, no. He said, yes, I'm telling you, you were born in Belmont. I said, hold on a minute. This time I was like 16, 17. Right. I was training at the Maple Ground. And this guy, the other guy is saying, no, Alvin was not born. He said, yeah, Alvin's father was in the school there, for young children there, but not Alvin. Alvin was never born in Belmont. However, they realized that, I don't know. But he was adamant that I was born in Belmont. But funny things happen.
So we're gonna take a break, but when we come back, let's take it into Maple.
Yeah.
That was your first real club that you played in the Portsmouth Football League.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about Maple when we come back. Viewers, we'll be right back after the show.
And the late Larry Constantine was in Trinidad at the time, and he came to me and said, son, don't be disappointed. I'll get you to England. I'll get you to be a professional cricketer. That's how I became a professional cricketer in England that same year.
Worldwide Safety Consultants Limited offers solutions to your immediate and future potential problem areas by providing you with a qualified team of safety consultants. Worldwide Safety Consultants Limited, building a reputation on quality and value since 1999. Located 23 Todd Street, San Fernando, Trinidad. Phone 868-657-1534 or 868-788-6955. worldwidesafety@yahoo.com.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Alvin, before the break, like we were talking about your career at the younger stage. Now let's pick it up and get into your team Maple, which you served for all your playing career.
Yeah.
And tell me how that started and take me through that.
Well, it started when I was at Fatima College. And Fatima College usually would use one of the national players to come in and coach. We had quite a few of them. Hugh Seeley was one of them, the famous goalkeeper. They used to call him the Black Panther. And he coached Maple for part of the time. Alan Joseph coached us for a part of the time. As a matter of fact, Lance Murray coached us after Hugh Seeley, and then Alan Joseph. But Hugh Seeley always remained. He paid me visits at home when I was 15, 16, talking to my parents about joining Maple. In other words, he was recruiting me for about 3 years, right? So when the time came and I was going out to school, Alan Joseph was the one who was coaching at the time. And this was done very smart. Maple Malvern together were playing against the rest of Trinidad in the Grand Savannah for, as an opening of, and I got selected in the Maple Malvern team. Alan was the captain. You had people like Squeaky Hines and Phil Douglin, and a whole lot of them, Conrad Braffett and Noel Wynn, one of the 13 boys. They were all in this team. I was like scared, but I got half of the game into the team, and every time, I never forget this, every time I got the ball and did something that Alan Joseph thought was good, he says, "This is not the last time you're going to see him here." And he keeps saying this all the time, and every time I did something, he'd pat me on the back and sort of driving me, not driving me, but making me feel that, I'm wanted in this.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, at the end of the season, I was in the North team, playing against South.
Right.
And from there, it just built and built, started to get better. Incidentally, I had the exposure because I played in the Fatima's first ever intercol team at the age of 14 going into 15.
Right.
I played at 15 going into 16, 16 going into 17, and that was it.
Right.
So therefore, we had to play. We didn't play in a colleges league. We had to play against Maple and Malvern and Notre Dame.
Right.
We were second division, but we were playing the knockouts, the FA Trophy and the League Cups, whatever.
Right.
So I had the exposure, and I was sort of growing with it. I also had a little bit more advancement in the business of cricket, because in those days, you either 6 months for cricket, 6 months for football. If you're not playing one of them, it means that you're doing nothing for 6 months.
Right.
I couldn't afford the luxury. I just loved both of them. And I was playing and playing and playing. And all of a sudden, I was called into the cricket team to trials against England in 1954. And I'm saying, I don't know that I want this. It was a matting wicket, and these guys were big. There was a guy out of Point 14 called Buxton Peters. He was as huge as they come. And even in the nets, I used to be a little bit scared. Jeffrey Stallmeyer used to come, "No, you don't need to be afraid." He said, "Don't care what the size is, the ball's got to come in the same size to you. So just do, that sort of thing." You ever prayed not to get picked?
Yeah.
I was praying not to get picked, but they were top-class players, Naira Nasralli, Andy Gantoum. They were. So I knew that Joey Carew and myself, they were only there to have us as, to help us on, that sort of thing. But that's when I got exposed to cricket. And in 55, they played an under-20 team, played against the Combined Islands. That was my first entry into international cricket.
A lot of people don't know that you represent the country at cricket and football.
Actually, I played cricket longer than I played football. I started in 55 with cricket, as I said to you, went right through to 1972. And in it, I played 3 seasons in England with the International Cavaliers. So my cricket career was pretty long. I stopped football because it was told to me that if you don't play, they say that you're not making the West Indies cricket team because you're playing too much football. So I dropped football in 69
So you can pick up
to be able, and I got some runs. I got 100 against Guyana, and I got 60 against Barbados, 56 against Guyana, and I still didn't get picked. And the late Larry Constantine was in Trinidad at the time, and he came to me and said, "Son, don't be disappointed. I'll get you to England. I'll get you to be a professional cricketer." That's how I became a professional cricketer in England that same year. And when I got to England, I became a little bit more recognized. And when I came back home, which was the better part, when I was playing for Trinidad before, we used to get $5 a day.
Right.
And they would clean our pants and our shirt. That's it. When I came back from England, I was getting $300 a match. I mean, I was like in heaven.
Yeah.
Because this was a 300% increase in this, And then I started to treat professionalism a little bit more than I had done before. I really didn't love cricket. They said that I was naturally talented, and I played it. A lot of times, and this is in hindsight and in regret, a lot of times I got out because I felt that, hey, but you were bullying me for a long time. I'm 50-something. you're not supposed to get me out. And then is when I got out.
Right.
Because I sort of went overboard with playing shots. And,
Right.
and if you look at my scores, you'd see a bunch of 50s, but 4 centuries. You know, and that tells me the story. And I always said I was not good enough. It wasn't a question of not as good as the others, but I was not good enough to think along the lines of being a Simonist to score 200.
Right.
And when I played against them, and these guys were scoring 172 and want to break the bat when they get out. And I was at 56 and happy walking out that I got 50.
Right.
You know, it made a tremendous difference to my life.
Right.
But in football, I was like you. I want to be good every day.
Right.
As a matter of fact, there was some discussion with Malvo and Maple and about the selection and Phil Douglin came and he patted me on the back one day and said, "You always getting picked in the national team." He was a selector. Eh? And I turned to him, I said, "You know what? You all will have to drop me for playing good." I said, "You want to drop me? Drop me for playing good." And he laughed and I laughed and we went away with it. But he didn't know that I was serious. When I'm going to play football, it's a different bag entirely. My wife used to say, "You're very uncomfortable." I say, "You're right, I'm nervous. I'm nervous, but I'm going to it." But cricket was a little bit different. I don't know what it is, but I have to put it down to my dedication to the game of football.
Mm-hmm.
And this started even more when I was in England for 6 months under an English coach. You know, but it has been interesting on both sides of the coin.
Well, it must have been you came back to football because I remember when I
Yeah.
joined the service in the 70s, and we played Maple in one of the cup finals.
The Amstel Cup.
Amstel Cup. I look at the sideline and Alvin Corneal is rubbing down with whatever, getting ready to come on the field, and I'm like, not gonna make a difference. And you did.
Yeah.
You remember that game?
Of
You
course,
scored
I remember that game. The thing about it is that I knew the worth of you guys because you had yourself. You have Arnim as well.
Yeah,
You
Ken
had
Morin.
Ken Morin.
Yeah.
You all had a fantastic team.
Right,
And we were going goalless, and this crowd was huge.
right.
And we got a free kick outside the box. And Arnim was the man on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, "No worry, he can't do anything about this. Don't worry about it." It was a little short guy called Clyde. What's his name? The goalkeeper from
Oh, Battle George.
Battle George.
Yeah.
And they all set it up and everything. And I hit this ball and it just swerved around and went into the net. And Arnim held his hand and George stood up and he wanted to find out what was going on. And, you know, and it dawned on me then that, you know, did you stop playing football too early? But it wasn't that I stopped playing football too early. I went into coaching.
Right.
When I was playing in England, I did 3 coaching courses. I got the English A license. I came back, coached St. Mary's College, and beat all you guys from that year with Alvin Henderson and Neil Williams and
Oh, yeah,
Hannibal.
last year in college.
But
right.
yeah, that was a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
team down there. And we won that league. And then I came to Maple. And I was player coach at Maple. That's when that came up. But what you didn't know is that I couldn't last more than the 20 minutes I played.
Well, that's why they kept you off the field for a little while and bring you on.
If I could have started, I just couldn't last.
Right.
You know, but it was enjoyable. Great experience.
That was for me too because I saw you play before in earlier years in South against Shell and stuff, but after that I didn't see for a while and then that was an experience for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, Alvin can't do nothing. Alvin coming on that.
Yeah.
Boom, 1-0.
Yeah.
And went away with our trophy.
Yes.
Because
yes. Because
we thought we would
the
win.
winner would play for the FA trophy. Remember that? It's the Amstel Bear was the winner would play for the FA trophy against somebody else. This was between your league and Port of Spain League and SFL. Those who won that one would play the other team for the FA trophy.
Yeah, that was an experience that
but I enjoyed you more because of that, because I didn't have to play against you. You know, and had the opportunity of traveling with you guys out to Suriname
Right.
and then out to French Guiana as well another time. As a matter of fact, we were sitting on the flight.
Yeah, we spoke on the
There,
flight
and spoke a little bit because, you know, I saw a game before and somebody was kicking the daylights out to you and you sort of started to get the desire to, and I said, listen, you've got a lot of those kicks to get.
Right.
I said, I've gotten them all my life. I said, you're young. And, you know, but because I recognize your potential and I followed the game, as you realize. I went straight from this into radio broadcasting, into coaching. I got a license that I could have coached in England if I wanted because it was the A license. And I just went on.
Did you recruited Kevin Verdi for the national team?
That's correct,
England?
because he was my tutor.
Uh-huh.
He was my tutor for the prelim badge and the intermediary badge.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one who said, go and get he said, because if you get a certificate from England, you can work in England.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about it and I went to get it. But Kevin I thought he was a good teacher. He was a very good teacher, and I felt that whoever would have gotten the job, and Edgar was the one who would have been there must have been something to learn. And the English had, in my mind, and I still do believe, the greatest formula for coaching is in England, but they're not creative. They're stereotype. You watch the English team and they got certain similarities, unless they got 7 or 8 outsiders. But they bear a certain degree of similarity in their work.
Mm-hmm.
And they were quick to say that, or you don't want to dribble in, we could do without it. So long as we pass the ball well and we go for the passes, get into the space, that was solid information.
Mm-hmm.
But when you mix it with skill, it's 3 times better.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I could lessen the opposing team by taking on 2 guys.
Exactly.
You know, they couldn't do that. They had the Jimmy Greaves and they had all these players who were good runners of the ball, taking half chances, scoring goals.
Mm-hmm.
But after the '66 World Cup, they didn't win anything.
Exactly.
Mm.
You know, I'm sure somebody must have told you this before, but when I first saw Revelino playing with him in Seattle, Washington, when Team America played Brazil, well, I was playing against them.
Yeah.
I saw Alvin Corneal on the field with the way he was built, the way he looked, the way he played. Did anybody ever tell you that you look exactly?
Listen, Carlton Franco, up to 2 years ago, he said, when all of these guys talking about swerve kick and this, that, and the other, he said, we had a Revelino right in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you all didn't recognize him half as much as you recognized Revelino.
Right.
Now, I happened to look at him play, and for his left foot alone and the things that he did with it, it was amazing.
Right.
And everybody used to come up with, you know, you used to do it as good as this guy. I said, listen, hold on. Let me appreciate this guy a lot, because I felt good about the fact that I had the opportunity a few years afterwards to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he was one of my favorite players.
Unbelievable. I mean, I would say everything, even how he was built and how he played. And I was like, wow, this is Alvin Corneal I'm playing against. Look at him again.
Yeah,
Make sure.
He was a tremendous player.
He was a tremendous player. So anyhow, so Brazil has the Pelé and the Revelino, and we have our Alvin Corneal.
Well, you know, we have our Steve David too. Don't you ever forget that.
No.
Let me tell you this. I went to Los Angeles many years ago. That time you were playing out there with Georgie Best, and I went to get something in a sports shop, and 2 guys were talking. They were, you know, the Americans, they talk louder than everybody else, so they're talking, and they were arguing about Steve David and Georgie Best. And they were talking, and this one, look at Georgie there, say, Steve David, you saw the game, so and so, and they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
And the supervisor, he says, listen, don't worry those guys. He said they both like Steve David. He said they're just trying to divide for an argument. He said because they're here all the time and all they keep talking about is Steve David. I said, tell you something, I would have talked about him too. He came from my country. He said, your country? I said, yeah, he came from my country. He said, by God, where the hell did he get all that skill? I said, we teach that to everybody. Don't worry about it. But he was elated over you as well. So you are not out of the picture. As I keep saying all the time to people, if we had a Steve David, if we had a Bobby Sukram, we would have had a team. We would have had people who would take their half chances and get the ball in the net.
Okay, since you're bigging up all the players, what about Maple players? Like, big up some of them that you think that was good, like Bobby. I thought Bobby was
Amazing.
the greatest, one of the greatest forwards I
Amazing.
saw.
Best player without the ball. Maybe Kelvin Barassa would match him in that regard. Andy Alliong was probably the smartest footballer that I have ever played with as a forward.
These were all Maple players, right?
Yes, Andy was Andy was classy. He was nonchalant. If you saw him walk down the street, you wouldn't think that he can kick a ball out of anywhere. But he's smart. We used to play outside and I'm inside. And we used to do some combinations and get some goals at good levels. We did it against Mexico in the Pan Am Games. We did it against Colombia. It happened all over the place. He was just, we were just compatible with each other in that way. I thought Sedley Joseph to be the best leader that I have ever played with.
Right.
And this is one of the things I was comparing with today's players. When a game changes its strategy from the point of view of the coach of the next team, our players do not know how to adjust because they have no Sedley Joseph to say, hey, listen, this is what these guys are doing. Let's change it. Let's go this way. There was no Sedley Joseph in that.
Right.
Sedley Joseph was a master of the art.
He was.
He didn't have speed. His passes were like 90% at all times, the simple passes, and he would drive you on in the most polite way. You'd swear he was a priest begging you to play, but he would get you to play. So there were some good players. Dick Rodriguez, I don't know if you remember him. Wonderful, wonderful. Tyrone de Labastide. Tyrone de Labastide was the best reader of a game in defense that I have seen. Selvin Morin was another one. Those guys were top of the line. It's a pity we did not have a lot of television in those days where the public could have seen the mastery of some of these guys, because Tyrone de Labastide was short. He would get up higher than almost everybody. His timing of the true passes were excellent. He would call on his defense to reorganize quickly. These are the things that made Trinidad and Tobago an excellent football team. An excellent football team. We didn't play Grenada. We played Chelsea, Wolverhampton, Arsenal, Tottenham Hotspurs. We played those teams. We played the America Football Club of Brazil, the Brazil under-23 team. Those were our internationals. So if we didn't show there, we would be embarrassed. We would be embarrassed. Nobody ever beat us 7-0 or nothing to that effect.
Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, I want us to talk about Alvin Corneal after football into what you're doing planning to do presently. We'll be right back after the short break.
An Englishman who played for Arsenal, wonderful footballer, and I said, there's something about his skill that I want to learn. You know, that sort of thing. And it went on and on. A lot of times we played against Air France.
Worldwide Safety Consultants Limited offers solutions to your immediate and future potential problem areas by providing you with a qualified team of safety consultants. Worldwide Safety Consultants Limited, building a reputation on quality and value since 1999. Located 23 Todd Street, San Fernando, Trinidad. Phone 868-657-1534 or 868-788-6955. worldwidesafety@yahoo.com.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Before the break, I was having a nice discussion with Mr. Corneal about his career with Maple. I want to move a little forward to your national, what you did with our national team. When did you come on? And when did you know, I know back in the day we didn't play a lot because when I came on the national team, I said I was going to play for 5 years. And you know what? I played for 5 years and then I didn't play anymore.
Yeah, because when I started, we weren't a country, an affiliated country to FIFA.
Okay.
We were a state of Britain. So whatever we did then was never considered an international game by the outsiders. For us, it did. That's the reason why we brought so many of the English teams to come out and play against us, so we can gain the experience. I was very happy with a lot of those because I enjoyed some really good games myself. And I started to admire different people coming from outside. I remember George Eastham, an Englishman who played for Arsenal. Wonderful footballer. And I said, there's something about his skill that I want to learn. You know, that sort of thing. And it went on and on. A lot of times we played against Air France. A lot of people didn't realize that Air France was literally the French team. But the Air France sponsored the entire team. So they would come down here and they'd play. Funnily enough, we never beat them. They were very, very good.
Of course.
But we saw it as international games, right? And it went on in different ways where we bought people. We bought a team off of a ship, a Coast Guard ship off of the Brit who were outside. They came to play, and they were really good. We were surprised. But then we kept talking to them, and they were saying, well, we play for Ipswich, and this one played for so-and-so, but we're just on duty here. So these are the things that sort of built my experience. Then, of course, that England trip was the best times of my career, I believe, must have been from the first day we were able to play in the World Cup. That was in 1964. And,
you were the first World Cup team.
Yeah, I was in the first World Cup team. We played at Suriname at the Oval. Then we played Costa Rica away and El Salvador away, and then came back and played Suriname, that sort of thing. In those days, a lot of people do not realize only one team qualified from CONCACAF.
Oh, yes. In my time.
Only one team. Now they have 5.
Four.
Well, no, 4, and you have to play. You could play the last one against one of the outside, like Ecuador or anybody like this. 1.
I know.
Yeah. You know, so it is not to say that we weren't good. It's just that there was only 1.
It was tough, yes.
Yeah. You know, and when you still had Mexico in it, you had Costa Rica in it, you had Honduras in it.
Yeah.
You know, it gave us a lot of opposition.
Suriname was good in those times.
Suriname was really good.
Right.
And a lot of those players, and they played for Holland.
Right.
A lot of them played for Holland.
Right.
And some of their children also played for Holland afterwards, because I've met them all over the place.
Right.
And so therefore, that part of my career from 64 to 70, I felt comfortable about Trinidad and Tobago's football and me being a player in that team.
Right.
Not only did I meet some excellent guys, some wonderful people traveling all over the place. I remember Warren Archibald, a comedian by all standards, but a wonderful footballer.
Great.
Right?
Yeah.
As we said, Bobby Sukram, another one who was, you know. And then we had some great youngsters. Ellis Sadafal was a youngster out of QRC, kicking the ball like nobody's business.
You guys took him right out of QRC and put him into Maple.
Of course. Yeah, a lot of our people either went to QRC or St. Mary's.
Right.
I was the odd man out. I was the first one coming out to Maple from Fatima.
Okay.
But the thing about it is that we were able to grow together. Now, when you go to play in any team from SFL, we know that we've got a job on our hands. Spitfire came to town and beat us in front of our own crowds.
Right.
And with Harold Cox and Ian Seals and all these guys. It was just fantastic, because you're living just right down the road, and when you come up against us, all of a sudden we're seeing a competition that is similar or better in some cases than we are. And I thought it did good for the country as a whole. The Trinidad, the people, the public knew exactly who will be selected for Trinidad, because you had the Interleague and you had the Red Cross and you had the Bowman Cup, not the Bowman Cup, the Skinner Cup, in the Dambolin also. And when you see 22 players there, you know that national team's going to come out of there. Then he started to come with Arthur Brown and Ken Hodge and those wonderful players coming out of there, Eddie Hart, right? So we were well sheltered with a lot of ability. Unfortunately, we only became independent in 1962. I would love to have been independent in 1958. I'll tell you why 58. Because by then I would have gone to England and could have accepted a professional contract, which was offered to Willie and myself from Wolverhampton. But we weren't British.
Right.
We weren't Trinidadians at the time in terms of an independent nation. If we were, it would probably have been better.
Right.
But I recognize all through that we had a lot of talent. I don't know if this has happened to you, but it happened to me. At a time, I thought we went to play in Costa Rica, and when we came off the plane, there was some newspaper selling at this side of the street, and here was my picture watching in that direction, and some guy picture watching in this direction, and they had a bit of Spanish, which I could have dealt with it with effort, but I didn't recognize it. And Conrad Brathwaite said to me, he said, "You know what they're saying? This guy is coming to mark you." I said, "Okay." And when the game was about to start, he came and he shook my hand.
Right.
And the crowd just went crazy, and he shook my hand. But as he let go my hand, he hit me a punch in the stomach and walked away and said, right. And the crowd was furious. I was mad. And we had a few players, Kenny Furlong, who was a wonderful player and another Maple player, who said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of him." You know, Kenny was one of these toughies. And I said to myself, wait, hold on. I don't mind somebody kicking me on the field, I'll take that. But getting a cuff and the referee not even seeing, because the match was not even started.
Started yet, right.
You know, and I start saying, listen, I'm getting a little bit older. This was now going down into 68, 67, 68. I said, you know, I'm getting fed up with this. This is, you know, every match you go to, somebody wants to mark you.
Right.
Don't talk about if you go to Jamaica, you know, everybody wants to be on you and that sort of stuff. But it was an experience for me. I enjoyed my career. To be honest with you, I did.
Well, you were a special player, and everybody. I remember going to see Bobby Shukran play, which I love, down the Oil Belt. But when you guys came down, everybody comes, Alvin Corneal. So I've got to see who Alvin Corneal is, and all of that. So you had a special career and a big one.
You know, and notwithstanding the fact, maybe it's because of the fact that I played in the South as well, together with North, and I grew many friends out of that. Cax Batiste,
right.
You know, he was a fabulous goalkeeper,
right.
And he was jovial as well. You know, I remember we playing Shell one afternoon. I went up to head a ball, and he came and he took it in the air. And as I passed, he just hit me a cloud to the back of it and said, "Don't come back by here again." You know, but he was just he was with us in the West Indies team in England,
right?
And with Pat Gomez,
right.
And both of them were fabulous goalkeepers.
Let me ask you a question: is Maple, Malvern, Army, who won the most trophies in the Portsmouth Football League? I thought it was Maple.
Of course it's me. I hear people talking about all sorts of things. Defense they didn't even commentate until a few years.
Right.
Before I went to Maple, they had won the league three years consecutively. Right. And when I went in, we won the league 3 years consecutively. Right. We won the BDF, we won the FA Cup, we won the Amstel Cup, we won the Gooden Chisholm, twice or 3 times. We won a lot of trophies. Anybody want to count after that could go ahead. Malvern won a few as well, right. To be honest with you. And Malvern, you know, it was a rivalry that was friendly. Carlton Franco, up to today, I called him as one of my best friends. And Sedley as well was one of Carlton's best friends. We walked off the field. I remember walking off the field one day with Carlton Franco talking, and the crowds in the Savannah were big. And, you know, he had his hand on my shoulder, and this guy come up and pulled his hand off and said, "Were you talking to him? He's your enemy. Look at, he just..." And I am Carlton. I said, Carlton said, "Listen, get away, get away." You know, because he said, "Alvin, what's this?" He says, "You think one goal is going to stop us from being friends? It's not going to happen." And that was the kind of rivalry. And how does it reflect to today's game? It does. They don't love each other.
Right.
They don't appreciate each other. You think I tell anybody, Carlton Franco is not a great player? Am I going crazy? When I'm sitting year after year watching this guy be the architect of everything that Malvern does in the middle of the field and nobody could stop him simply because he had a little bit of everything? Don't I have respect for people? The way I looked at it is that Carlton Franco is what they really call the general, and he was. He was a fantastic player. He had some good journeymen, like Kelvin Barassa. You find him in the net, he's going to score. Clive Niles was one time, Arthur Brung, who would, if you give him a chance, he'd take those corners and kick it in the goal as often as I would like to have done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and these are the people that make me happy in the game.
You must have had good guidance, because I remember when I came to Portsmouth to play, after lunch there's a show with Rafi Knowles that you used to be part of.
Yeah.
So you prepare yourself for beyond football, which I admire so much as well. So I have so much respect for you. So I don't have much time. We got about 5 more minutes, but take us through a little bit of your life after football, right into what you're doing or you're planning to do presently.
Yeah, well, when I funnily enough, it's while I was playing football, Rafi Knowles was a big fan of mine. And we used to talk all the time, and as a matter of fact, it so happened that he went into a business. We opened a sports shop in San Juan, Alvin and Rafi's, and unfortunately he died. We had to close it down. But Rafi said, you can do commentaries with me. I thought, I shrugged that off. But I went to watch cricket, a game that I had played against India in 1972 against Sunil Gavaskar. He called me to go in the box with the test match. I said, okay, I'll give him a chance to see the test match right and everything. And then he says, you on next. I said, what do you mean by I'm on next? He said, you on the next. You're gonna do. I said, Rafi, no. He said, no, and he started to build me on the radio. Alvin Corneal, and I was shaking and shivering like nobody's business. Nobody was brave enough to tell me I made a mess of it, but I was happy when it was finished.
Right.
But then he started to bring me in and to give comments just in the studio on a game that was played and so on. And I told myself, you know what? This is something I'm worth giving a try. So when I went to England, I did the coaching courses. And in the coaching courses, Steve, and this is interesting, the first things that they tell you is, listen, your playing career is finished. You have a new career, a career which calls for good communication, good observation, good temperament, good areas where you can give examples of what is good. Your life has got to change. He said, if you want to do anything, go into coaching.
Right.
And go into coaching to the point that you don't want to coach the player you were, because then you'll be teaching your mistakes as well. You've got to teach the whole game. That's why I went to do the coaching courses. And I did every single one until I got the diploma out of Leipzig in East Germany. Wonderful program. They were communists at the time, but they were wonderful teachers. And I went on and on until...
Speaking about coaching, you have an academy coming up, right?
Yeah. Well, not the academy is not coming. It's been up 47 years.
Not coming up, exactly.
But
sorry.
what I'm trying to do is to rest some of the young people in the country from that day when we had Dexter Skeen and Colin Skeen and my 3 sons and 5 other people starting an academy in 1969. And my intention was to groom these guys so that they could become national players. And if there's anything in life that I'm proud about, it's that academy.
So what's the plans now to...
The worst part of it, the thing about it is not one of these kids were asked to pay anything, simply because some of them couldn't afford it.
Right.
And if they couldn't afford it, they wouldn't come, and they're deprived of maybe expressing a talent that they have. So what I'm trying to do is to go right back to that.
Okay.
I'm calling on parents or community coaches. Hey, come, talk with us. We're going to train you to train the kids in your community. We're going to monitor them as well. Fortunately, I've got a son who's into the same kind of business and does coaching courses for the C and D level. The thing about it is that we want to sort of reincarnate the business of what a professional coach is. I'm not onto anybody who is thinking that I'm knocking them. No, I'm exposing it to you as well. Because even to today, I learn when I see. Even to today, I can point out to some of the best coaches in the world. And if I got to talking to them, they're on the same wavelength. They're understanding. They are seeing, they're saying, well, I've been looking so intense into the game. I missed that, Alvin, or I missed this. This happened. I want to be able to do that. I've not been asked, and I'm not begging for the TTFA or anybody. But I think I've got a few years, hopefully. The Lord's been very good to me with health. And if I can get him to give me a few years to restart, and for 4 or 5 years, bring the communities and do the sort of the satellite expansion to the Alcons, not because of Alcons, but because of those communities, a lot of whom you've come from a community. I came from a community. All the top players come from communities. Yet still, we don't want to go in there and look for the same people. And I believe that this is one of my ambitions. And if I can set it up, I'll try to get sponsors to give these people balls and uniforms and so on. But that's what I'm trying to do outside of writing my book, which somewhere along the line, in the next 3 months, I'll give you a copy.
Alvin, we run out of time, but I am so glad that you're here, and maybe we need to do a part 2 to this so we can talk a little bit more about your career off the field of football and cricket. So I would invite you to come back at any time so we can continue this conversation.
Sure, I'm thankful to you for that, because maybe my grandchildren would see this and said, hey, you know, he wasn't too bad after all.
Right. Okay, viewers, thank you for letting us into your homes and bringing the show to you. Thank you, Axe, for giving us the opportunity. We do have a Facebook page. Check us out. We do have an email address, fieldofdreamstt@gmail.com. The show is ended. Go in peace. See you next Monday night. Good night.